Banggood sent me over these two jigs, wanted me to take a look at them and do a review on them. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my honest opinion on these, and we'll see. We'll let you decide if you think these are great jigs or not so great. All right, so we've got our measurements. It's 50 millimeters usually from the edge. So there's a lip right here. We hook that lip, and then we're going to go, if we're going from the inside lip, we would go to this set of holes here. Now, we can also take the little red bar here off, and if this cabinet was already built, and then slide it up to the edge on the inside, and then we would drill on the inside holes, so they already have those marked. It comes with two real nice, we got a 5 millimeter for your metric shelf pins and a 1/4 inch for the standard shelf pins. These are actually some really nice self-centering bits that go in that hole there. And then if we were going to proceed up here, after we do our first set of holes, we need to slide this forward, and then it has some real nice aluminum pins that would go in. It fits the outside hole, and then we've got the 1/4 or the 5 millimeter, depending on what size holes we're drilling, and that way we could move forward. I really like this because, like on this one right here, what I'm going to do is move this, slide them together, lock that down, and then I know that I'm going to be nice and straight as I slide up and down. However, I like to use my grommets, which I need a 9/32 drill bit that doesn't come with that. And then at the same time, I'll need a 9/32 pin. So I've got some of these I 3D printed out. I'll actually put a link up to printables if you use the 9/32, and I'll give you a link to the 9/32 drill bit. Now, because I'm building these all separate, I want to make sure they're exactly the same. So I also 3D printed this little gizmo here. And so what that does is I can come down here, put this on the end, and maybe if they see this, they'll make this an option that comes with it. So now we can lock this here in, and then we can slide up. And so now I know I'm going to be flush at the bottom here, and I can drill my pin holes. And then I can do all, I've got 6 of these shelves we're building. And then when I put them together, I will know for sure that they're all going to line up. So there's 28 holes on this. And as I was drilling these out, I went in and I timed it, and it took less than about 55 seconds to drill the 28 holes. So this jig was able to really get these holes perfectly lined up and drilled out really quick. So definitely this is going to be a jig I'm going to keep and use for a long time. Let me show you what this tapering jig, it's also a straightening jig. It calls a linear jig on their website, but it's actually a straightening jig or a tapering jig. And some of the videos I've seen, other people really wasn't using this to its full, what it was designed to be used for. So let's go ahead and get this set up. I'll show you how I would use it. One of the first things in the book, it says to put these grip strips on so that your project can get grip. These are not grip strips. This is like a Teflon based tape here, which is going to make this slide super smooth and just should be, I can already tell because, I mean, this is Teflon. I wish I could get a roll of this stuff because it definitely will make this jig slide right across the table saw top. This kind of looks like it would be backwards, but the channel actually sits upside down. You slide your little piece in here, and then we hook our hold downs. Now you can't get too crazy with these because you don't want that screw to stick out the bottom. But now that once we have our rail here, we need to attach it to our tabletop. And then all we're going to do is take our T-bolt, slide it in, pull this over the top, drop that in there, and Tighten that down. So now if I got this big old piece of live edge here, I want to get a straight edge on, I can come over here and put my, so I'm going to take and make sure that the edge of the board is past the edge of our jig. And so then once we get this locked into place here, all right, so what I'm going to do is make sure that the live edge is past the edge of our jig right here. And then we'll slide our jig up against our fence, and then we can slide our fence up next to our blade. And so we know that our blade's not going to hit our fence, but as we slide this across, we're going to get a nice straight edge. And then we just need to raise our blade up. All right, so that's going to give us a nice straight cut across the one side. And then if we wanted to, we can just flip this up against our fence to make a nice square board. So we also got this nice long 36-inch track here, and we can slide that in onto our table saw. I've already adjusted it, but you just screw these down and that gets that zero play. And then we can slide our fence up on here and put our screws down there and get that adjusted parallel with our blade. And then we can just slide this in our track rather than using our fence, because I don't know if you caught it when I was coming through, I wasn't really paying attention. I was looking at the camera and I was let that front of my board get off my fence just a little bit. But if you're in the track, that can't happen. That's going to keep you nice and straight. So up until this point, if you're just going to use this as a flattening jig, or you just want to use this as a taper jig to slide down, this will work perfectly good. But if you are expecting to utilize this to the full potential, now you see there's measurements on here. And everybody else I've seen, they're not using those measurements. But what that is for is the original. Those measurements are exactly 24 inches apart. So you can have a taper of a pair of drawings. And if you go 1 inch here and 2 inches there, so now you know you're going to have a ½ inch per foot of taper. And so that way you can just line up with your blueprints and go ahead and set that taper. I don't think the person who copied this jig really knew what they were doing or how to use the jig, because if you measure here, we are exactly 24 inches from the outside to the outside edge. However, it's metric on the one side and imperial on the other. So that means when you're putting your 2-inch mark here, and then you put your 4-inch mark over here to get your 1 inch per foot, you're actually going to be off by the thickness of that groove, which is almost a ½ an inch. So your angle will actually be wrong. They need to either have the imperial on the outside, or they need to have the imperial here to be 24 inches in between your marks. So we're going to be a ½ inch off, which is only going to make a fraction of a difference. But if you're really getting precision, you know, it's wrong is wrong. So if we have a bunch of legs and tapers we need to cut, we've got the nice stop down here. We can then just come up in here and um, tighten that down, and then we can get that repetitive cut every time, so we could do a stack of this. However, we got another issue. So the edge of the knob hits the board, and that puts a gap, so we're not able to put that tight up against our rail. You know, now it'll be the same every time, but if we tighten up just a little bit more, now that's going to move in. So again, that's going to throw off our angle. And then last but not least, this right here on the original is another track, just like these right here, where you can run a stop in here. And what that's made is so that you could cut a bigger stop and slide it up in here and move up and down to get your right height. But that is not a T-slot. That's just a groove. So our T-slot will not fit in there. So we can't use, so this groove here is actually worthless. No need in it even to be there. So in that case, they could have just cut the board flush here, and then we could have at least had a gauge to measure the width of our board on the tops or bottom. All right, so in my opinion, this is an absolutely great little jig right here. Good price point. It would be nice if it had either a little bit nicer box that it came in, or something. I'm gonna have to make up a little something to keep all the pieces together in, because I will be using this in the future, and I've already used it to do hundreds of holes. Um, did about 6 or 7 cabinets with it already. It's holding up great, working fantastic. Um, this here, it works really good. These handles and all are very heavy. These are like solid aluminum. It's along with these hold downs, it's some high quality parts. I just think they missed the ball, by not using this. If I'm going to be doing table legs and stuff like that, I'm going to be using something thicker than plywood. As long as you're only using like a 1 inch or thinner, you won't hit these knobs. But if you do anything thicker than like a 1 inch thick piece of wood, you're going to hit these knobs. Also, you can't do these adjustments here because they're going to be off. You just need to like transfer those lines across and mark them. When they do the CNC to make this, they should move that over or get a tape that has the numbers on the opposite side. And then this groove here, I don't know why they did the T-track on these grooves here. And this was obviously made on a CNC, so I don't know why they didn't run that same bit through these and make this a T-track like it's supposed to be. But they didn't. It does have holes that you can hang it with and all that. So overall, depending on what you're wanting to use it for, this is a good, well-made jig with some high-quality parts. But if you're wanting that gauge on here for your angles, or want this groove here, either you're going to have to cut your own T-slot in here or something, because you won't be able to put in any kind of T-bolts in this slot. So I'm putting it out there. You tell me what you think in the comments. Tell me if I should have just not did the review. But at the same time, it is a good product. But I want you to be aware of the flaws. I've seen several videos on this, and none of them mention any of those flaws. And I don't want to recommend a product, and then you get it and you're saying, "Oh, he, said this was great," and it doesn't work in this situation. It does work in most situations, but a couple it doesn't. So until next time, I hope everybody has a wonderful day.